Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 13. And today we are discussing Starman Volume 2, number 7, and Adventure Comics number 66. So we're going to reverse it this week. And thank you for your patience, for allowing me to, well, not allowing me, but understanding that I had to take a week off for a bad tooth. It is feeling better. It is Sunday evening. I am solo. My wife is out of town for a couple weeks, and so since the tooth is feeling better, I recorded an episode about the Fantastic Four that I hope you enjoyed. And I decided to get this one under the book so I can get caught up and maybe get a bunch recorded while I'm solo in the house. So let's get on to Adventure Comics 66 and our Ted Knight story. So, Adventure Comics 66 is cover dated September 1941. It has a amazing Jack Burnley cover. And it shows Starman outside a dock room, and then this negative image of a guy coming toward him. And we're going to talk about that guy because I really did like this comic. So the Starman story is called The Case of the Cursed Camera. For the creative credits on this, executive editor Whitney Ellsworth, writer Gardner Fox, penciler Jack Burnley, inkers Jack Burnley and Ray Burnley, that is his brother, colorist Raymond Perry, letterer Betty Bentley, and editor Murray Boltinoff. And as I said, this is The Case of the Cursed Camera. And here is a synopsis from the fandom database for this story. Using forbidden formulas combined with the properties of photoelectric cells, thin young photographer Cuthbert Kane steals the souls of men, giving him power over their wills. When he snaps a shot, he says, Thena Naya. That is a guess, folks. That is a guess. This is the third time I'm recording. That's as close as it's getting. He can summon an ensorcelled servant by speaking to his photo, or he can kill one by willing them to die as he snaps their shot. Using a photo of Woodley Allen, Kane keeps the FBI from involving himself in his crimes. Starman is asked to help, and he arrives to prevent Kane from robbing the U.S. Mint. Kane takes Starman's picture, apparently putting the hero under his control. Starman merely feigns submission, as the gravity rod canceled the effect of the camera by acting on the silver nitrate in the film. Starman is taken back to Kane's hideout, where he then forces the man to fix up an antidote to free his captives. Flinging a bowl full of special photographic acid at Starman is no use. The rays of the gravity rod cause the acid to explode harmlessly in midair. Magnetic rays from the gravity rod lift the villain into the air. The rod repels bullets and pulls the gun from the man's hand. Culprit Kane, a.k.a. the Camera Eye, resists, trying to use the camera on Starman when he drops his rod. But Starman slaps the camera in a neat 180-degree spin, snaps Kane's own picture. Kane turns into a living negative sketched in white against the blackness. He then vanishes completely. This jives with Starman's own reading, from the 5 minutes he spent in Kane's occult library, that the user of these powers who allows his own picture to be taken disappears. Cuthbert Kane's disappearance restores all of his victims to normal. So I didn't do who was in this book because I just wanted to get into the synopsis. But it's Starman, Woodley Allen, and Doris Lee both. This is the only appearance of Cuthbert Kane, and I find that disappointing. Because I kind of want to talk about this. I like this Cuthbert Kane as why people like Jeff Johns and others, I know they've read this. He's a good villain. You could have brought him back, give him another stupid, or not even given him a secret identity name. Just make him this guy with this power. It is such a 40s villain, and I loved him. These are very similar stories at times, I think, because, it is a kind of a formula they're using for kind of like that, just the standard 40s adventure strip. This has got to be one of my favorites, because I really did enjoy that the villain was just this skinny little nerdy guy in a bow tie with a magic camera, and the magic / science is so bizarre and far-fetched that in a 1940s comic, I believe it wholeheartedly. It's just a fun story. The art is gorgeous. I wish this stuff was on the app. DC, put it on the app, on the app, on the app. It's ridiculous. People should be reading this stuff. And this one is one reason why. These are my favorite gold. I'm enjoying it. It was such a fun story. It was such a fun little story, and it worked perfectly for me. Based on every other thing I've read with Ted in it, this is like, okay, I could see Jeff Johns. I could see anybody, Robinson, Grant Morrison, anybody kind of pulling this character out and using him, do it. And I'll talk about the big announcement, well, big for me, that came out a couple days ago at the end of this, because it goes back to my love of Golden Age. But let's move on to Starman Volume 2, Issue 7, and Jack, my man. So let's get ready, and I'll give you some of the pertinent data on that bad boy. So here we go. This is, again, as I said, Starman Volume 2, Issue number 7. It is cover dated May 1995. Executive editor Jeanette Kahn. Cover artist Tony Harris. This is one of the best covers, I think, early on. I mean, I really do love Tony Harris's work, but this is one I wish I had this as a black light poster. It is very much like a Musha painting, if you know who Musha is, Musha painting inspired Tom Baker's costume on Doctor Who, and also Kaluta, who did like the shadow and stuff. He definitely was inspired by Musha. But it looks like one of those paintings. It's got Jack standing center, this lovely ornate trim around him, and on the sides are for the people from the circus that he is going to. The owner, two of the freaks, and the goon. And it is gorgeous, gorgeous. I posted it already a couple times while I was prepping for this last 2 weeks, and it's just a stunning cover, and I would love it as a print. It's just amazing. I mean, it's just that good a cover. So let's get to, this is called A Night at the Circus, Part 1. Okay. That is an homage to A Night at the Opera or A Day at the Races, Marx Brothers movies, but a night, instead of N-I-G-H-T, it is K in parentheses, night, N-I-G-H-T, at the Circus, Part 1. And maybe that's why the baddie looks a little bit like Groucho Marx. Appearing in this book is Starman Jack Knight, Ted Knight, flashback only. David Knight flashback. There's a little flashback to that. Supporting character Greg Bailey, the Cosmic Geek, a.k.a. Michael Thomas. We'll get to that. And Sadie Falk. Introducing Sadie Falk. I know who Sadie is because I've read this. You've read it. But I am going to stay very quiet on Sadie's identity until Sadie tells us who she is. So on to some of the newer characters, or the antagonist, Mr. Bliss. His first appearance, Crusher, whose real name is Lyle. And then other characters that appeared is the Black Pilot, Black Pirate, Ghost in a Vision, and the Circus Freaks show, Octavia, Finnegan the Fish Boy, Max the Nazi Doll Boy, and Babaloo the Demon Chimp. And we get know a little bit about Turk County. Let me give you the synopsis from this, and then we'll start discussing it. Here's the synopsis from the DC database. Jack Knight goes antiquing in the farmlands outside the city limits. During his travels, he happens upon a circus. He watches the freak show and then goes to see the Cosmic Geek attraction. A blue-skinned man chained to a wall. During his viewing, Jack experiences strange visions, panics, and runs away. Afterward, he speaks to the manager of the circus about the Cosmic Geek. The manager informs Jack that the performer's real name is Greg Bailey, and he puts on quite a good act. Jack is then escorted to see Greg again. However, he is deliberately redirected to another tent where the other circus freaks are weighing in wait to ambush him. He fights his way free and flees back to Opal City, where he arms himself with his cosmic staff. So, this is weird that I'm only going to cover the one issue, but we're doing this one at a time. I forgot the reprints. This was reprinted in the trade, Starman Night and Day and Starman Omnibus Volume 1, both the hard and soft cover versions of them. And it is now in the Starman Compendium Volume 2. This is I really enjoy this, but I do because I enjoy the Adventures of Jack. But I kind of want to go through this bit by bit. We've talked about Opal City being a character in this piece. And I'm going to read you the opening narration of this comic because we're going to talk about what lies beyond the city limits and what makes Opal City somewhat unique. And these are Jack's words. There's something in Shade's journal, an observation. There's something glaring in its obviousness that now that it's been pointed out to me, but which would have never occurred to me, not ever. There is Opal City. The city, its buildings, but there are no suburbs. There are the mountains and the forest to the north, and to the south, there are the plains. With all the toing and froing I do, not once did I notice that, man, I've been living in the Opal for way, way too long, I guess. Yeah, weird. 1 minute you're in the city, and then you're not. Zap, pow. You're in Turk City, where, God help me, the bargains are to be found. And then we go into another one of these lovely James Robinson, Tony Harris montages of Jack's affinity for collectibles and being, a curio guy, that kind of nerd, the collector. And he goes to a guy who's got all this Hopalong Cassidy stuff. And then he goes to this guy who's got this weird gray-brown, this weird lamp, a phonograph. This guy that has these very fancy crystals has just been shooting him because he hates his dead mother. I love it. And then there's this great quote, and it's quoted in the Fanbin database, and it's also quoted here, where he's talking to this really kind of creepy redneck. I sometimes think about that painting, American Gothic, by Grant Wood, The husband and the wife who, from the look in their eyes, have a dark secret somewhere in their past, and maybe it's still buried in their land, too, or in the gloomy house of theirs. And that's what I think about when I drive around looking for bargains. American Gothic by Wood and the bodies in the barn. So he sets off. This sets up that, that there's always something creepy out in the suburbs or outside the city. I live in the city of Richmond, Virginia. I love my town. It has its problems, but it's been my home for 40 years, and I have an affection for it. But I hate suburbs. I fucking despise them, people. I mean, I really do. And there are a lot of people live in them. I just can't. I grew up in a John Hughes movie. I grew in the Cookie Cutter. And 4 years ago, I said, fuck it, I'm moving to a city because that's where my brain's at. Just the environment I prefer. But there's also the thing about I live in the South, and there are the jokes about you go deeper in the woods. And that's not fair, but sometimes, in the horror movies, you go out in the country, and it's crazy, crazy weirdos. But that aside, that's just a lovely montage. It's basically three pages of setup. Could be exposition, but they turn the exposition into explaining how to build the world building around the city, because Robinson and Harris didn't take Starman out into, he doesn't fly to Japan to save the day, he doesn't fly to Gotham, he doesn't team up with people, he guards Opal. So Johns and Robinson in this issue are really building it. When we get to pages 2, 3, 4, and 5 is a double page spread, and I've shared it, and it's him discovering the circus. He pulls over in his Knight's Pass, which is the name of his shop, comes in the entrance, he's just, his mouth agape, and it's unexpected, and there's this, the main part of the 2-page spread is just looking down like the main strip of the carnival. And then it's just him thinking about him and David being at a circus with their dad. He starts reading the freak posters, and he starts thinking about what this reminds him of. And then here's another quote. And now here's something I don't want to miss out on. Speaking of the Freak Show. Me, such a fan of Todd Browning, the director of the movie Freaks, and Tim Burton. and the Fantasy Island reruns, the Freak Show, One of Us, One of Us, One of Us. I don't even know if they had these anymore. And I wonder what it's like to be gaped at just because you're different. I may find out soon enough in terms of people gawking at stuff. They're different. There doesn't appear to be much difference between a limbless worm man and a superhero. Funny how. And then he discovers the Cosmic Geek, and he goes in, and there's Michael Thomas from First Issue Special number 12. It's a beautiful one panel, and it's just Jack taking it all in, and he's just standing there. And then we go to the next page is just 6 panels with very little dialogue, and it's the next 2-3 pages is Michael reaching out and kind of in images telling his origin story. And, Jack leaves, and he goes and talks to Mr. Bliss, who looks a little bit like a pimped up Groucho Marx character or a villain, and he feeds him a line of bull that, Greg isn't him. And it's, it's 3 pages of 2 guys sitting around a table. A lot of, I don't mind a wordy comic. This stuff is great. It's great. It's a great issue. And then he gets he gets attacked, and we got a great 4-page battle scene as he beats up a monkey and gets away, and he wakes up and he sees the Pirate King, and then he gets in his uniform, and that's when we see the title for the first time, the last page. Again, this is just great, and it is all set up for the next 2-3 issues, which make up this story. So he'll go back and fight, and we'll find out more about Mr. Bliss. And we'll find out more about Michael as Michael is introduced into the story and into the book. It's just great. I mean, it is just great. We have some discussion about it. This is one of my favorite stories. I'm a huge fan of Michael. I'm very much Michael of Starman. I know Robinson put him in Justice League, and I need to read those. But he's such an important part of the grand tapestry that is the Jack Knight Starman era. I liked all the cultural references. I like the stuff about Browning and Freaks. And if you haven't seen it, it's a must-see horror movie. I'm not a horror fan, but it is an amazing piece of art, and creepy, and really shows you who the real monsters are in this world. And Todd Browning did a great job with it, and I'm glad they bring on. And the idea of Circus Freaks. I'm gonna tell a story. I was in a play called Miss Firecracker. 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I don't know, ages. I played a character called Maxam, and it's set. He's a carnival worker. He's a pretty awful piece of shit. It was a great part. I really liked it. But we have the state fair here in Richmond every year. Being the kind of snobby little punk I was, I guess, back then, when I was much younger in my 20s. I wasn't a punk, but just, I'm never going to a state fair. It's all rednecky and blah, blah, blah. That's rude and disrespectful for a lot of people. I was afraid of the rides. I didn't really understand people driving around, and I didn't understand it. I'd never been to one. So we went. The entire cast went as research, especially when they found out I had never been, to go do this. And I could see the carnies. And these guys were leathered with, these are the guys putting the machines together. And they really were these skinny, leather-skinned old guys. And I could see, it helped me with the character. I got it because the character I'm playing is kind of, I at least could visualize, and just listening to them, the people talk that were working there, and they were from all over, and, imagining what that lifestyle was. But they had a midget, the world's smallest woman. And we got in line. We paid our $2. And there she is just doing crossword puzzles and knitting while people fucking gawk at her. Including me. Because I'd never been. And I walked away and my friends was like, what did you think? I said, that is the most horrible fucking thing I have ever fucking done. In some ways. because just a gawk. And so I like that the freaks, how the freaks are not, we're going to find out more about them, and they're not monsters. Todd Browning's movie, they're not the monsters. They're just people. And I had not read this comic when I had done that. I think I wouldn't have gone. I hadn't seen Browning's Freaks. I may not have gone and looked at that woman. But it made me think about it reading it. And it is something I've always kind of gone, Jesus, that was just fucked up. So we're going to move, next week we're going to move into some more Will Payton. We're going to do issues 3 and 4. I'm going to read those tonight. I'm all alone solo at the house for 2 weeks. My mom took the dogs to go visit her mother, and while her mom's recovering, the lovely Ann Cooper is recovering from knee surgery. I hope she's doing great. She actually has listened to some of my Doctor Who podcasts because she's the best mother-in-law in the world. But I'll let Leslie know that I said that, so she can listen to this one. But we're going to do some Will Payton, and then back to Jack again and Ted. And JSA 8's coming up, because we are going to cover that by itself on an episode. I may have guests, I may not. Depends on timing, because that's the first Jack Knight in All-Star. And we'll be doing all of his All-Star Comics appearances intermixed with everything. I think that'll be a nice mix, because I'll run out of Prince Gavin pretty soon, quickly, in a few months. And I will stop. I will cover his DC Comics Presents again and talk about it in context of this, as I will before I get to at some point soon in the next 6 months I will be talking about Michael's first appearance in conjunction with issue 12 of Danger Street. But that's future planning. I'm going to catch up with Legion. We got first Dark Circle story net on 2 days, on Thursday. And next weekend, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I know me and Kirby want to chat to you about John Byrne FF and the first volume of the Suicide Squadron, the Ostrander version. So me and him are going to get together, and maybe I can rush one out. I'm going to be reaching out to him tonight. So send positive vibes. I want to have another chat with Kirby. It's always fun. And there are other people I want to have back. I'm going to start trying to get some, maybe I can get some people to record while I have no dog duties. So I can get a little ahead, as I've said. All right, folks, that's it for this week in Opal City. As always, be safe, be smart, be kind to one another. Don't treat people like they're a freak. Treat them like the unique individual they are. And read some comics.